Good evening. We have two meetings tonight. The first meeting is a meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. It's Monday, October 8th, 2018. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Ammons.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Hazen.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Roberts. Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here. We have approval of minutes from the previous meeting on September 4th, 2018. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Bill. Are there any corrections? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay. Public participation. Does any member of the public want to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay, seeing none. Committee to verify bills from the Town Fund and General Assistance Fund. Ms. Chenoweth?
Thank you. Good evening. You will see in your packet essentially the town bills for this month. From the Town Fund, we have $33,840.63. From the General Assistance Fund, we have $47,692.21. We have a total of $81,532.84. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jared?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Town Fund and the General Assistance Fund.
Second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Reports of officers.
So you have before you the supervisor's memo. I want to go through the memo, then I want to go through the financial report, which you have as 11 by 17. And then I believe Wayne, our assessor, has a report on the trainings that he and his staff have been attending. So, first I just wanted to comment that the general assistance participants has remained static, although actually there were a number of closures and new opens, but it leveled out to 114, which is where we were last month. That's slightly down from the month before. We recently audited our stats and kind of revamped how we're tracking stats as a slightly updated. We have 52 folks who are verified as homeless. 19 are assigned to community workfare. And I just want to point out that we recently have developed a much deeper relationship with Salt and Light in the old County Market location on Filet Road. They have a very unique and I think fruitful for our participants model where folks receive credits in the store to shop, both for food, housewares, clothing, all kinds of things. And I want to note that you can also shop for money, and I want to encourage folks to shop at Salt and Light because it helps to support their program. So I have started to do some of my shopping there. So Salt and Light is now our primary location for workfare. Our garden is closing up shop for the winter. And so most of our community workfare participants, most of the 19, are assigned to Salt and Light, and they will receive both credit towards general assistance as well as credit towards the store. So that actually helps to extend that $265 a little bit further. And we're taking a tour of our office is taking a tour on Thursday of their programs to see how we can partner in a deeper way. So that's exciting. 37 are on the work track, which means they have to be actively seeking work and submitting proof, and they do that by the middle of each month. And we are actually in the process of moving some folks from work track to community workfare, so you will see a bump next month. 50 of our applicants have pending SSI, SSDI cases, and I just want to note that we have launched our SOAR training, and we have 15 case managers from 9 agencies that we're actively training on helping folks get on SSI, SSDI payments. And we've had 3 of those trainings. Next week, Senator Durbin's office is sending a representative to speak to our cohort about the way in which his office has support systems for case managers and advocates, as well as constituents who have SSI and SSDI cases. So I'm very excited to have his office represented in that training. We have 11 who are senior citizens and exempt from workfare. Our average age is 48. Homeless assistance, as you'll see, we had 7 household services this last month. I think that's going to generally be an average. We have 4 eviction prevention and 3 rental assistance for the homeless. I am considering dropping the payment. It's now at $900, and both Andy, the supervisor in Champaign, and myself are looking to kind of merge and have one payment amount between the 2 cities. So I will have an update on that shortly. We'll get to CU Men's Emergency Shelter. That's one of the items on the agenda. I just had a couple other announcements that are relevant to the town board and the community. First, you've asked questions about shelter. We are looking to expand the emergency family shelter. As you know, there's a number of families who are actively homeless in our community, as I have spoken about many times. Good news is that the city of Champaign has taken a provisional vote to set aside $35,000 for shelter, and that will likely go to men and women's shelter this year. So that's very exciting. We also have scheduled votes from the United Way, City of Champaign Township, and Cunningham Township to vote on additional funding for women's shelters. So that you'll be seeing a proposal most likely next month to fund shelter, women's shelter. And we're really hoping to triple the capacity, if not better, triple or quadruple the capacity of emergency family shelter with that. It's a very exciting initiative that involves the Housing Authority as a key player to support housing vouchers to transitional homeless families into subsidized housing. So more on that, but that's a little sneak preview of what is to come. We had a wellness fair. We had 50 of our participants come to a wellness fair. We called it the Self-Care Community Repair Wellness Fair. Thanks to Urbana Acupuncture, Urbana Free Library, Silali Stanton, Amy Wyatt from Amy and Silali help support hands-on healing and massage, Antonia Herbstreit for breath work, and the Peace and Resiliency Champions for talking about trauma-informed care. This week we have 2 opportunities for folks to register to vote at the township. The first one is tomorrow from 12 to 2. The second is Friday from 11 to 1. Both will be pizza parties, and for anyone who shows up, any member of the public can come. First come, first served on the pizza, and you can register to vote. And we have information specifically for the homeless on how they can register and participate in voting. There will also be several stories in the press on this issue, as I've been talking with the press about the importance of the homeless in voting in all elections, including this one. Any questions? Yes?
Eric?
You mentioned emergency housing for women, which I thought that there wasn't a location for that identified yet. Is that, does your mention of that indicate that this is going to happen soon, or am I talking about something different from what you're talking about?
The location that we're currently looking at is the Courage Connection properties on Church Street. Courage Connection's board has voted to continue the process of looking at expanding emergency family shelter at that location. As you may know, they lost all of their federal funding for transitional shelter, and we're looking to transition to a model that is a rapid rehousing model that serves a lot more women and families and includes transgendered population in the service.
Okay, so that's really good news. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
what's great news
your
is that
efforts on
we are preserving Time Center as an emergency men's shelter, and we're preserving Courage Connection as a women's shelter, and we're adding capacity at both locations. So I could talk more about Times in a bit, but I do have a financial report. This is the large document in front of you. Basically, what I've done is you had requested quarterly financials. I hope that this is an easy to parse way of looking at it. Essentially, as you recall from the budget, we have supervisor unrestricted, assessor, we have the town fund where most of our shared expenses go, and then we have general assistance, which actually comes from a separate levy and has certain restrictions. What I've done essentially, the most important line for you to look through is percentage of budget. That way you can kind of see, are we over or under? To jump to the punchline on page 3, we are under budget. We're at 22.5% essentially at the first quarter. We are over budget as expected in some ways in certain line items. Every single time we're over 30% or so, I have provided an explanation for why and have looked through the expenditures related to that. I think probably the item that is the most over budget, so to speak, is emergency assistance. That's the bottom of page 2. We're at 131%. That is because the motel invoices from last fiscal year were paid in this fiscal year. And so there's a significant, and you'll see that in some cases, because we operate on a cash rather than accrual basis, the actual cash payments do not always line up with the budget. That said, we are under in terms of general assistance payments, and there's a number of places where we're under and we expect to stay under. So I think right now I don't have specific concerns about going over, and in each case I feel like there's a reasonable explanation. You're welcome to sit with this and send me questions, ask any questions at any time. I know this is the first time you're seeing it. I sent you a digital copy as well. But if you have any questions at this point, I'm happy to answer them as well.
No questions at this time?
Okay. I will pass it to...
Report from Wayne Williams?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so my report is going to focus on the IAAO conference that me and Tan May, who is an employee in my office, went to. We're just going to go over what is IAAO, about the conference, the Township Assessor's Office here in Cunningham Township, where we are now, where we want to go, practical takeaways that we can implement from the conference, and the conclusion road ahead. So the IAAO, or the International Association of Assessing Officers, is a professional organization of government assessment officials founded in 1934. The organization sets the standards for property assessment practices. They also publish the most current research in the assessment industry by mass appraisal experts. So the IAAO held their 84th annual conference in Minneapolis. There were around 1,300 assessment professionals who attended from counties all over the United States. There were also assessment individuals from Canada, the Netherlands, Ireland, Nigeria, and the United Kingdom. There were a total of 81 educational sessions over the course of 3 days. These sessions were highly informative and provided an insight into the state of the assessment industry worldwide. The nature of the presentations range from simple talks, such as using animated videos to educate taxpayers about property tax, to advanced lectures on using statistical software to build predictive models that can aid mass appraisal work. Since there were multiple educational sessions, me and Tan Mays, we split up and attended the maximum number of presentations that we thought were relevant to Cunningham Township. The presentations also award continuing education credits toward the CIAO designation. So this is kind of an overview of the assessor's office and where we are now. We don't have many digital records we don't have any digital records or property record cards. Right now we have to scan them individually if someone requests to see them via email. We still use paper copies of real estate transfer declarations and city permits. That causes a lot of time to be spent on scanning cards and doing manual data entry. And this is time that can be better spent doing assessment work or taking measurements. We still use the cost approach and depreciation for residential property valuation, and we really need to implement direct sales comparison approach using some form of regression modeling. So one of the sessions was titled Using Google Sheets to Track and Manage Sales Validations, and these slides, they come directly from the presentations of the presenters. So this one was a presentation done by a couple people from the Adams County, Colorado Assessor's Office. So they used Google Sheets to track sales validations. They found it was a better way of handling sales and workflow than traditional pen and paper. Google Sheets provided a free option that can be built with moderate Excel expertise. And it's a better way to allow multiple employees to work on a project in real time and avoid duplicating work. And they also saw benefits of improved workflow. They have all the data in one place, so it's easier for them to find the key drivers of value. It's easier. They found it was easier to conduct sales ratio studies, and they plan to move to using multiple regression analysis to establish market values. So why Google Sheets? It's collaborative. It's web-based, but can be edited offline. Excel files, you can only modify one user at a time. And you can use multiple tabs to separate sales by property type, area, type of inspection. So this is a kind of an example of what they use. And it's color-coded. I'm just going to briefly kind of go over it. Blue are the sales that have been reviewed. Green are sales where it's sold higher than the assessed value. Red, they sold less than the assessed value. And the green and red need to be reviewed. But what this sheet has, and you can't really tell because it's small, it's just there for an illustration, but it has all of the important drivers of value, so then they can filter and dwell down and see kind of what's driving value in their jurisdiction. Another one of the talks was using the R statistical software for assessment analysis. And this was done by the Property Valuation Services Corp. It's an independent, not-for-profit organization that does all the assessment work in Nova Scotia. Over 600,000 parcels, over $100 billion in value. So they use regression analysis. And before going to the conference, I've been talking about wanting to use regression analysis here at home. And I kind of thought that was like the only way to use statistical models to determine value. At the conference, I learned it wasn't the only way. You can use linear regression, you can use machine learning, but there are many different types of statistical models that you can put sales data through to determine the values of real estate. So this is an example of the predictive modeling process, an example. So the inputs would be like the sales data and property attributes. The prediction is the model kind of determining what are the key values or driver. The judgment on top is like the assessor, where we can kind of put our feet on the scale, let's say, by ranking the attributes. The action and the outcome, that's the value coming out, and then you feed it back into the model to better train the model. And it's a pretty picture. So kind of what techniques we can use. There are other more advanced algorithms that can be used to perform better than traditional multiple regression analysis. They are way too complicated for me to explain today. But this is the future of assessments, going from a cost-based, depreciation-based method to going to a direct sales comparison regression-based method to determine value of real estate. Another one of the topics, drones mapping the future. And what this is a donut chart showing how drones are going to be used in the coming future. As you can see, over 50% of the uses predicted to be real estate and aerial photography. So some current uses are viewing obstructed properties, assessing waterfront properties. And then here's the list of the regulations, which I won't get into. The drone technology, it's cool, but it's also expensive. It's something I'm gonna keep my eye on. It's not anything I could justify getting right now. But as the technology gets better, as it gets cheaper, it's definitely something that I'll keep my eye on. So where we want to go, we want to move from a paper-based office to a data-driven office. We want to have an assessor website to make property record card information online. Free software like Google Sheets will help us collect and organize data. We want to implement statistical-based direct sales comparison for valuing all residential properties. The R software is a free-to-use statistical software that has statistical packages already built in. We met with experts in the field who already have implemented such models for a market-based sales approach, and as members of the IAAO, we are part of IAAO Connect, where we can share and post questions and share resources. So there are actually external benefits of being a data-driven assessment office. And this is a small chart, or this is an example where the Mayo Clinic partnered with the Olmsted County Assessor's Office in Minnesota. And what they did was they created this index called the Houses Index, which uses assessment data to determine socioeconomic status. And they used assessment data to look at health disparities and outcomes. So on the left, you have the lowest quartile on the index, and toward the right, you have the highest quartile of the index. And as you can see, which probably isn't a surprise, the lowest quartile of values, there's a more instance of various chronic health conditions, coronary heart, asthma, diabetes, hypertension, and mood disorder. And this was a very cool presentation of external uses of assessment data. The takeaway is that so the houses index is the index using assessment data to determine socioeconomic status. The index can be used to help external organizations meet mission goals. The index also enables better assessment of services to deliver high impact or high value services by using high value assessment data. So I thought that was really cool. If we can get the office to where I want it to be, there are many uses for the data. So in conclusion, the 2018 conference was a very fruitful learning experience. It'll increase the efficiency and accuracy of future assessment work. It's inspiring to see the scale and caliber of offices in the assessment industry. We spoke with people that basically had one man or woman shops to big assessment jurisdictions with their own chief information officers. We have big challenges ahead of us in transforming from a paper-based office to a data-driven operation, but we're up for the challenge, and organizations like the IAAO and events like the conference will help us get to where we need to be.
Any questions for Wayne? Eric?
So, thank you. This is really interesting. And one question that comes to my mind, I'm really fascinated by the regression analysis and by the phrase predictive. Does that imply that you could actually use assessment data, put your assessment data into this regression analysis, and use that to inform decisions that you might make about zoning, about what kind of development to encourage, et cetera? Can
Well,
this be folded into a strategy to
no,
help
sure.
Urbana grow
So,
economically?
Obviously, I want to use it to determine value, right? But the point is, we can use it, and the Mayo Clinic study was what I thought the most interesting, but you can use this data to determine a lot of different things. If external users like the city council wants to use it to determine zoning, so be it. Right now, we can't do it because nothing's digital,
Right.
but we want to get there.
Okay. I'm pretty excited by what you've presented. Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. That was interesting. Did have a question about, you said still use the cost approach and depreciation for residential. When you talk about residential, are you talking about multifamily and single-family residential, or just single-family, or
Anything under 8 units,
under 8 units?
Yeah.
Okay.
and
Is-
condos, and
A lot of times when we talk about residential, we have all different scales. So for the larger developments, larger multifamily developments, are there just not enough sales and units to use the regression approach in our
well,
market?
for the larger stuff, you'd want to use the income approach.
Okay. So when you say residential for the smaller units, it could be rental or it could be
Right.
owner occupied.
Right.
Okay. So for so home sales now, I'm still trying to wrap my head around. So when somebody sells a house now, you aren't really using that data. You're using the cost approach.
No, so we use the data, but we use it in aggregate to determine sales ratio studies. But what we do is we take our values, and I'm going to oversimplify. Okay, we take our values, we look at the sales in a particular area, and we compare them. Are they where they should be? And if they're not, we just factor the values that we already have up or down to get the median to where it should be.
Okay.
The base values are calculated using the cost approach typically.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions? Aaron and then Mary Alice.
So first of all, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to understand myself, but it sounds like you got it all under control. I think that's why you are assessor. But the question I have in particular is in relationship to the impact the data has or what it can teach us about health. I wonder if you would go back to that slide. I just wanted to spend a moment to make sure I at least understood this. So it's saying to us that, can you oversimplify this slide
Yeah.
for me? All right.
So on the left where you have the yellow bar, so basically they took the social economic status data that they obtained by using assessment data, and they broke it up into 4 quartiles, right? The lowest quartile is going to be the first, second, third, and fourth is going to be the highest quartile. The lowest is represented in yellow. Then the second is going to be orange, the third green, and the fourth purple. So what this is showing is basically the odds ratio of whether you'll have a higher incidence of a particular chronic disease based on what quartile.
The assessed value of,
Well, so the assessed value is what's driving the data. So they found that this was a better predictor than, say, income or age or sex. They found it was just a much better way to determine socioeconomic status. There are many ways to measure it, but
or is this the impact of socioeconomic status? Because to me it says that the people with lowest income or living in the least value homes are more inclined to have these conditions. Is that what I'm?
That's what it's showing, but knowing this and knowing what the data contains will help, and that's why it goes to this slide. It'll help, social service agencies, other government agencies like public health services, social services, public safety. Knowing what the data shows, you can target programs and services to those areas that most need them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mary Alice and then Eric.
I'm wondering if you have plans to have the data be open? So as you said, other people can use it.
Yeah,
It has a pretty good open.
So actually the reason that drew me to this particular presentation is the person that put it together is like an asthma specialist, and I have asthma, so I kind of felt like a personal connection. And he asked, how can we get your data? Because they want to bring this like
data.
nationwide. And I was like, you just have to ask for it. And it's like, well, is there a cost? I said, no. And then he's like, well, what format is your data in? And I said, paper. And
Which catches fire.
so, we got to get the data in a usable format.
That's true.
Sure. No, I was just curious if your intention then is
Yeah,
for anybody in
absolutely.
the community to be able, once you have it digitized.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Good. And then I would also encourage you. I don't know if you've used R in the past.
I have not.
Okay, so R has a really steep learning curve, and I know it's free, but PSPP is also free, and it does not have a steep learning curve.
So actually, TMA is kind of an R specialist in our office.
Okay. All right.
And he's gonna once we start doing this, he's gonna leave very detailed instructions.
If you're a computer program, they will make sense if you know how to computer program. But R is, as I said, has a steep learning curve, so I just wanted to give you a heads up. I know it's free.
Eric.
So the other thing I would note is that there's some fairly robust collaborations between Mayo Clinic and University of Illinois.
Right, and let me see if it's in here. they actually partnered with one of the universities in Minnesota. And I did mention that to the researcher that presented this data. I'm very interested in finding a way to get our data in a way that they can use it and then find out all this interesting stuff.
So there is a formal framework for collaborating between Mayo and UIUC. So once your data are available, in form that they might be used for research, I can perhaps assist in figuring out how to make that connection with Mayo in a formal way that would actually involve some resources.
No, that would be great. And again, the whole reason for this particular, why I brought this, it doesn't, I keep saying I want to go digital, I want to do this, I want to do that. And, I want to do it because I just want to make sure the values are right, right? But also, I found out there are other things you can do with this data and, stuff like this that can go to perform a social mission that, while probably Danielle is much more better equipped to do that, let's have the data so we can, target the services to the places most needed.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any unfinished business? Okay. New business is resolution number T 2018-10-014R, which is resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with the CU Men's Emergency Shelter.
So as you recall, part of social service funding, CU Men's Emergency Shelter requested $12,000 in funding to operate a women's shelter from December 1st of this year through March 31st of next year. The City Council/Town Board, in the interest of providing emergency shelter before the cold months, proposed funding at the level of $30,000 contingent upon CU Men's Emergency Shelter opening 2 months early on October 1st. This might ring a bell. Instead of that December 1st scheduled date. Certainly, thanks to advocacy, including our mayor, by local elected leaders, Rosecrans has agreed to take the sale of the Time Center off the market and has instead rented Time Center, the old Time Center, to CU at Home at a discount, which is just phenomenal news. CU at Home was successfully able to move their Phoenix Center off of Green Street into the former Time Center, and they reopened September 18th, which doesn't give a whole lot of time to open on October 1st. The Board of CU Men's Emergency Shelter, which is the entity that's actually going to run the winter shelter, it's a different 501c3 nonprofit, has determined that the earliest it can open is November 12th. We've gone back and forth. I did some begging for November 1st, but I understand that they need to, plan and put things in place in an orderly fashion. 1.5 month early, they also have said that they can stay open until April 15th, 1.5 month later than planned, with the support of additional funding. Initially, they had reported to me, and kind of given me the breakdown that each month at the old location cost about $9,000. We don't know what the new location, my guess is it might be a bit more. So essentially, what we were offering was 2 months of kind of fee for service, and they're offering 1 month. So this proposal before you is essentially a specific contract. You had approved the $30,000 contingent upon the open date. They can't do the open date. This is a new contract that would say November 12th, closing April 15th. And it would be for the amount $21,000. So it's essentially half of the overage. So I need approval to sign this particular contract with CU Men's Emergency Shelter. I did want to just say that the intention in the conversation, the intention is to have CU Men's Emergency Shelter operate the shelter out of Phoenix this winter, close in the spring, and then have them merge with CU at Home, which hope is to operate a year-round shelter starting the fall of 2019. It has taken our community about 3 years to recover from the loss of shelter, and it's been a very difficult time for homeless men and families during this time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Mary Alice?
So if I'm reading this correctly, I mean, if we cut it down to 30,000 for 2 months, that's 15,000 each month, and they're going to be open an additional month, 2 weeks on either side, roughly speaking. So that's 9,000 instead of the 15. Am I reading that correctly?
9,000 instead of 18. They requested 12,000. You offered 18,000 more than that.
I see.
9,000 per
Okay,
month.
gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jared?
So, just so I'm clear, Danielle, so there will be the Phoenix Center, the Time Center, but the Phoenix Center is in the Time Center.
Yeah, Time Center is
Closed.
actually has closed and no longer operates under that brand. But the physical center is now rented by See You at Home at a discount.
And it's
Thank you,
called-
Rosecrans.
And it's called
And
Phoenix Center
It's
now?
called the Phoenix Center,
Now.
yes.
Okay.
So I say formerly known as Time Center, so that people know where to go, because that's the identification.
Which will be different from the CU Men's Emergency
It
Shelter.
will be the same location, the
will
Phoenix
be-
Center. See, Time Center actually operated at the end largely as just overnight. This would be daytime and overnight, so it's an expansion of services, which is great. So there'd be the warming center, the showers, the ability to get meals, things like that that come from the Phoenix Center, as well as the overnight shelter.
And-
And it will also, just for the record, be a damp shelter, which, unlike Time Shelter, which was notorious for banning people and had a very long list of folks who could not stay there, they're really hoping to be a more inclusive space.
And so the CU Men's Emergency Shelter and CU at Home will be operating in that same space.
Yes, and CU Men's Emergency Shelter intends to fold into CU at Home, so there would be one agency starting next year.
Next year. Mm-hmm. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts. It really is what happens when you bootstrap it.
But it's one location.
One location,
Where is it going to be?
Time Center, formerly known as the Time Center in downtown Champaign.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill?
I'll move approval of resolution number T 2018-10-014R, a resolution authorizing supervisor to sign an agreement with CU Men's Emergency Shelter.
Second.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Aaron. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. With no further business before the town board, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.